Right now, or maybe later tonight, you're going to lie down in a room that's been engineered for your comfort. The thermostat's set to whatever number some sleep study told you was optimal. The sheets are soft. Maybe a fan's spinning somewhere. And your body, without you doing a single thing, starts a countdown. Core temperature drops. Blood rushes out to your hands and feet. And somewhere in there, you just go under. No effort, no thought. It just happens. Now picture a night 200,000 years ago. No walls, no breeze, just a shallow overhang of rock in what's now southern Africa at the edge of the Lubombo Mountains. The stone's been baking in the sun for 12 hours straight, and it's still giving that heat back, slow and steady, like a cast iron pan set on the counter after cooking. The air doesn't move. Every bug for 100 yards has clocked your location. And your body, same biology, is trying to do the exact same thing it does for you tonight, cool down enough to shut the brain off. Except nothing's cooperating. So how'd they manage it? No AC, no fans, not even woven cotton. Just skin, timing, other people, and a whole lot of trial and error. Stick around, because the answer is actually kind of wild. And honestly, a piece of it is still running in your body right now, whether you notice it or not. Part 1, the body becomes the machine. Let's start with what's literally built into you. Somewhere between 2 and 3 million years ago, your ancestors made a trade that, on paper, sounds like a terrible idea. They gave up fur. Fur's great insulation. It's why a husky can nap in the snow. But insulation is exactly the wrong tool when you're chasing prey across an open, sun-blasted savanna in East Africa. So evolution went the other direction entirely. Instead of trapping heat, the body started shedding it, and fast, through an upgrade most people never think twice about: sweat glands. Not a handful, either. Somewhere in the range of 2 to 4 million of them packed into human skin, more densely than in any other primate alive. A 2018 study out of the University of Massachusetts Amherst, led by researcher Andrew Best, dug into exactly this, comparing sweat gland density across primates. The findings were pretty stark. Human skin, especially in spots like the palms, can carry upward of 500 glands per square centimeter. That's not a minor tweak. That's a full redesign, and it happened because the alternative, panting like a dog to cool off, just wasn't fast enough for a 2-legged animal running down animals in the heat of the day. Here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough, though. This wasn't just a daytime tool. Losing the fur meant something huge for nighttime, too. Fur holds heat against skin. Strip it away, and suddenly your entire body surface becomes something closer to a radiator. Heat can just pour off you into cooler night air. So while your ancestors were out there running prey to exhaustion under the sun, yeah, that's the whole persistence hunting idea Harvard's Daniel Lieberman has spent years researching. That same bare skin was quietly working a night shift too, bleeding heat out into the dark once the sun went down. And the skin kept adapting. Roughly 1.2 million years ago, a genetic shift tied to the MC1R gene spread through early human populations, pushing skin toward darker, more melanin-rich tones. Makes sense, right? Once you're mostly hairless, you need something to handle UV exposure. But the sequence matters here. Going bare came first. The dark skin showed up afterward, playing catch-up. So by this point, your ancestors are walking around with a built-in cooling system better than anything else on 4 legs, or 2. Problem is, and this is the part that trips people up, sweating and radiating heat only works if there's somewhere for that heat to actually go. If the air around you is just as hot as your skin, you're stuck. No transfer happens. You can be the most heat-efficient mammal on the planet and still lie there wide awake, drenched, going nowhere. That's the wall your ancestors hit over and over for generation after generation. And instead of just enduring it, they started engineering around it. Part 2, the first bed wasn't for comfort. It was a machine. Here's a question worth sitting with. What actually is a bed? Not the mattress store version. The original idea. Turns out, the earliest evidence we've got answers that question in a way that has nothing to do with softness. That evidence comes from a place called Border Cave in the same Lubombo Mountains region, right along the modern border of South Africa and Eswatini. In 2020, archaeologist Lynn Wadley of the University of the Witwatersrand published research in the journal Science describing bedding at that site dating back roughly 200,000 years. the oldest known constructed sleeping surface we found anywhere on Earth. And here's the detail that's easy to miss. It wasn't just grass. It was grass layered over ash. Specifically, ash from earlier fires, deliberately kept and reused across what looks like generations of the same shelter. 2 jobs, 1 material. First, it kept the sleeper off the bare ground, which, and we'll get to why this matters in a second, was actually working against them all night. Second, ash is brutal on insects. It dries them out, clogs up whatever they breathe through, essentially neutralizing ticks and lice before they can get comfortable in the bedding. On top of that, researchers found traces of camphor bush mixed into the grass, a plant that's still used today in parts of East Africa specifically as a bug deterrent. This wasn't random. Somebody figured out a working formula, and it got passed down. Now, about that ground. Rock and packed dirt soak up solar radiation all day long, and once night falls, they release it back. Slowly, stubbornly, for hours. You've felt this if you've ever walked across asphalt right after sunset and noticed it's still throwing off heat. Your ancestors couldn't turn that off. What they could do was get some distance from it. A thick layer of dried grass sitting on top of ash creates a pocket of trapped air between a sleeping body and that simmering ground. And air, it turns out, is a lousy conductor of heat. That pocket wasn't generating cold. It was just blocking the transfer, the exact same principle behind the insulation in your walls right now. Somebody whose name we will never know worked this out 200,000 years ago in a cave with 0 blueprints to go off of. That's not a small thing. That's an invention. Part 3, sleeping on the clock, not the clock. Even with all of that, the sweat glands, the bare skin, the ash and grass beds, some nights the heat just won. And on those nights, your ancestors reached for a completely different kind of tool, timing. There's a study from 2015, led by researcher Gandhi Yedish, and involving UCLA neuroscientist Jerome Siegel, that tracked sleep across 3 present-day hunter-gatherer populations whose day-to-day lives closely mirror pre-industrial conditions. The Hadza in Tanzania, the San in Namibia, and the Tsimane in Bolivia. The results messed with a pretty common assumption most of us walk around with, which is that ancient humans just crashed at sundown and woke at sunrise, like clockwork. They didn't. On average, these groups were sleeping about 6.4 hours a night, genuinely less than the typical person in an industrialized country gets. And sleep onset wasn't tracking sunset at all. It was tracking temperature. Across all 3 groups, people fell asleep as the air was actively cooling, and they were waking up right around the coldest stretch of the night, usually just ahead of dawn. They weren't chasing darkness. They were chasing the cool. During summer stretches, when it stayed warm well into the evening, people went to bed later and slept noticeably less, close to an hour shorter among the Tsimane compared to winter months. It's almost like the body was sitting there waiting for the air to give it permission to shut down. Which raises an obvious question. If you're losing sleep on hot nights, how do you not just fall apart from exhaustion? The likely answer is that your ancestors probably weren't sleeping in one long stretch to begin with. Historian A. Roger Akirch from Virginia Tech spent something like 16 years going through pre-industrial European records and found well over 500 separate mentions of what people called first sleep and second sleep. 2 roughly 4-hour blocks, split by an hour or 2 of being fully awake in the middle of the night. Not insomnia, just normal. People would get up, poke the fire, chat, sometimes even wander over to a neighbor's, then go back down for round 2 until morning. In hotter environments, this pattern probably showed up even more strongly. First sleep hitting once evening, temperatures started dropping, the awake window landing right in that coldest, most bearable stretch of night, perfect time to grab water, shift to a cooler spot, or just lie there and let skin do its radiating thing, then second sleep carrying through to daylight. And they weren't doing any of this solo. Part 4, nobody slept alone, and that was the point. In 2017, anthropologist David Sampson from the University of Toronto ran a study on the Hadza using wrist-worn accelerometers, tracking sleep continuously across 20 nights. What he found was almost hard to believe. Out of the entire 20-day stretch, there were only 18 total minutes where every single member of the group was asleep simultaneously. 18 minutes across 20 nights. At basically any point during the night, you'd find a median of 8 people awake at the same time. And this wasn't just random insomnia scattered across the group. It lined up with chronotype differences. Older members tended to drift off earliest and wake earliest. Younger folks stayed up later into the night. Stack all those different rhythms on top of each other, and you get a rolling wave of alertness that covers almost the entire night, start to finish. Samson actually has a name for this. He calls it the poorly sleeping grandparent hypothesis. Your grandma waking up at 3 a.m. for no clear reason? That's not a malfunction. That's a couple million years of built-in group security still quietly doing its job. Heat wasn't just messing with individual sleep. It was reshaping how an entire group rested, distributing wakefulness so the whole camp was functionally never fully unconscious, never fully exposed. The person sweating and wide awake at 2 a.m. wasn't failing at rest. They were, in a weird way, on watch, able to check the fire, listen for predators, glance over at a kid. The heat that woke them up was, no joke, part of what kept the group alive. Part 5. When humans started building around the problem. As people started settling into cities, the fight against heat didn't go away. It just got architectural. Take the Sumerians, roughly 5,000 years back, building some of the first real cities in what's now Iraq. Their homes had flat roofs and open courtyards, and that wasn't a style choice. It was a direct response to the fact that indoor air at night was flat out unbearable in summer. Families cooked up there, ate up there, slept up there, fully open to the sky. And there's actual physics backing that instinct up. A clear night sky acts like a massive heat sink. Surfaces radiate infrared energy straight upward, and with no ceiling to bounce that energy back down, an exposed rooftop can end up several degrees cooler than the surrounding air. The Sumerians obviously didn't have a term for radiative cooling sitting in their vocabulary, but they clocked the effect and built their whole domestic life around it. Egyptians took the idea further. In ancient Thebes, where summer heat regularly blew past 110 degrees Fahrenheit, people slept on rooftops too, but they'd also hang wet reed mats across windows and doorways below, so any air drifting through the house picked up some evaporative cooling on the way in. Clay pots filled with water, left sitting around the house, worked as crude but genuinely effective evaporative coolers. And then there's Yazd, an ancient Persian city in what's now Iran, home to the Badger. Wine catcher towers, some standing for over 1,000 years, engineered to funnel moving air down into living spaces below. These structures could drop indoor temperatures by as much as 12 degrees Celsius compared to outside. Not decoration, not a luxury flex. These were sleep technology. Full stop. Built by people who understood a simple rule. If you can't cool the body directly, cool the air around it. And if you can't manage that either, move the body to wherever the air is already doing the work for you. Part 6. What's still running in you tonight? Zoom all the way out for a second, because the full picture here is honestly kind of staggering. Your ancestors were up against an engineering problem every single night that would absolutely wreck most modern people if you yanked away their electricity for a week. A body that physically needs to cool down to fall asleep, stuck inside an environment that refuses to cooperate. And they solved it on every level available to them. Biology, shedding fur, cranking up sweat gland density, turning bare skin into a nightly radiator that took a couple million years to fully dial in. Materials, layering grass and ash to put actual distance between a sleeping body and a ground that wouldn't stop giving off heat. Timing, syncing sleep to the temperature curve instead of the clock, splitting rest into pieces instead of forcing one long block that the environment couldn't support. Community, spreading wakefulness across the whole group so nobody was ever fully checked out at the same dangerous moment. And architecture, rooftops open to the sky, wind funneled through towers, wet reeds hung in doorways, whatever it took. Every single one of those solutions, still active in you, right now, whether you clock it or not. Your body still drops its core temperature before sleep kicks in. Your hands and feet still flush with blood to dump heat. Researchers at the University of Basel actually found that this exact process, distal vasodilation, is the single strongest predictor of how fast a person falls asleep. Underneath the thermostat, the memory foam, the whole climate-controlled setup, you're still, at your core, a tropical primate whose ancestors cracked the code on surviving brutally hot nights so completely that you've basically forgotten it was ever a problem worth solving. Tonight you'll climb into bed. The room will be cool. You won't think about any of this. Why would you? But somewhere underneath all of it, in the way your temperature quietly drops, in the way blood shifts to your skin, in that random wake up at 3 a.m. you can never explain. There's a straight line running back 200,000 years to a bunch of sweaty, restless, endlessly resourceful people who never once got a perfect night's sleep themselves. They just made absolutely sure, eventually, that you could.